The session has begun recording. I hope you have all received the link to the recordings, both in stream and YouTube. And today we're going to start with the personalization of the search results when we're looking for forwarding orders in TM. I know we kind of rushed through that yesterday, and today we'll do this again. You also probably realized, if you checked your inbox, I sent an email earlier with 2 Excel templates and a scenario in the PowerPoint for day 2 that I think was a good idea. This was also mentioned by Nicole and some other team members in New York, that if we could offer you guys the chance to practice in the system, in the training environment. So we managed to create a small scenario for you guys to upload your load files in TM. And the scenario is basically that, just the Excel that you can play around with and upload the file in TM, make sure it works. If you have any errors, how to solve those. So that would be the main thing, because that's what we really covered yesterday the most. Since personalization was a last minute thing, and today we're going to cover that as well. What I'll do after this session is send you another scenario for you guys to personalize and set up the results page. Okay, so you can have that set up the way you want to. So we'll start with that. First thing, we're going to go to our forwarding order tab, which is this one here, forwarding order management. And once you click on that, remember, as we saw yesterday, we have the link here for the mass upload of forwarding orders, which is the one you will click on if you want to upload a load file. And once you've done that and you've generated your forwarding order, you would go to the overview forwarding order hyperlink to search for that forwarding order you just created. Now, it's easy when you only have one file, right, or one forwarding order. But once you have hundreds of them, what would be very useful for you is to know how to navigate and search for your forwarding order. Now, it's also the case that if you know the number, remember, as we said yesterday, you could basically just, once you click on that hyperlink, go to the main page, as we see here. And I think you guys can see this well. If not, I can zoom in a little more. But basically, this is what the page looks like. If you know the forwarding order number, you can basically just add it here in the forwarding order field. You can even use the multiple selection to search for various forwarding orders at the same time. Another very good option, or something that works very well, is to simply scroll down to the field where it says created by. And once you add your username, anything that you have uploaded will show in your results, right? If I add nothing here, no details at all, I'm basically going to get all the forwarding orders that have been created in TM, right? We have here a bunch of results. Okay, so before I go into the personalization, I just want to go over quickly the fields that we have here that we can use. So remember the forwarding order, if you know the number, forwarding order type. We also have the movement type option, if you want to add that there too. And as you scroll down, you can see you have the fields for shipper and consignee. Shipper is basically, in our case here for COE and troops, the troops contributing country, and the consignee would be the mission it's being directed to, or vice versa, depending on the movement type. We also have the pickup dates from and to, and delivery dates from and to that you can search by here, as well as even the carrier options, life cycle status, and so on, right? Maybe the best option for you is created by, and if you know the number, just the forwarding order. If this is not enough for you, remember that you can also click on the change query option here, top right section. You just click on that and you'll see you have a brand new list of fields that you can use to search from. So you can scroll down and see that now they're all divided into sections, whether it's the external reference, organizational data, for example, the sales organization or sales group, which is very important for you to find those that are linked to your sales group. Those forwarding orders that are linked to your sales group, the same thing for business partner, location, dates and times, items, and so on. You see that the options are quite extensive here to perform a more, let's say, detailed search. Okay, once you have populated these fields, you would just click on apply and you'd get the answers there. Okay, so that goes for, yes, Nicole, I see you want to say something. Sure. Okay, so Nicole is telling me to go back to change query, and you want me to? Okay. Okay, so you are basically talking about personalizing the search fields that are available for us as well. Okay, so very good. Thanks, Nicole. So another option, let's just cancel that and repeat what I just did. You have a certain amount of fields here by default that you can also either hide or add new ones. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's also an option for criteria personalization. You can click on this. And as you see here, we have the fields that are selected. So we have them under the quick search. And if we scroll down, you'll see that you have many more that are not selected if you want them to appear. For example, we can add a voyage or a vessel, default route, or any other options depending on the section. Okay, we can even remove some if we're not interested in having the MOU, which is probably one of the best options here. So we'll keep that. But if we don't want to see something, we can also unselect it. And we can play around with some of these if we want them to disappear. Basically, you get the idea. I think this is quite simple, right? If you want to add to the quick search, you select. If you don't want them there, you unselect. And once you are done reading through the options that you have here, as you see, there's quite a number of them, you can just click on apply. Okay, and the search fields will change according to what you've selected in the criteria personalization. Is that okay, Nicole? You want me to? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's only for the search fields. So again, we can use the ones that are here. We can search for a more extensive section, or we can even personalize, right? The amount of fields that we see. So let's go back now to our search results. So let's say that we have gone into this screen. We've clicked on the forwarding order management tab, clicked on the hyperlink for the overview, and now we have our list. And again, remember that by default, when you log in the first time, and you'll be able to practice this with the usernames that I gave you in the PowerPoint, we'll go over that nonetheless together. You will see that the system by default organizes the results in, I guess, whichever way it was set up at first. But that doesn't mean it's written in stone, right? You can play around with the columns and you can display or hide anything you want. You can have a filter applied or even sorting options. Now, how is this done? So basically, if you can see here, we have a box called View, and here I have already set up a couple of personalization items, right? So let's say I'm going back to the standard view. I'm just going to click on standard view, and this is going to take me, and it's going to change my results, and it's going to display them as TM does originally. But I don't like this. I want to play around with this a bit more. So you have an option to either just drag and drop fields. If you just select them and move them around, you can move fields like that manually. So I want the consignee here, for example, and the shipper after. I don't want the other field here. So you can play around with this just by dragging and dropping. You can also select a column and see that we have the options of sorting, ascending, descending, or we can even define a filter. So right from here, we can select the filter that we want to define and add the forwarding order number, because this is the column that I selected, right? The one for document is the one equivalent to forwarding order number. And here I can simply write the number of the forwarding order that I'm interested in seeing. For example, here I can say 4, 5, 6, I believe 18, maybe this 6 zeros is fine. And if you clicked on the filter, you would only have that one option. Okay, but basically you would get this same result if you had added that forwarding order number at the top here. You would only get one result. So you can set this up like this manually. I can say, let's say I want to remove this filter and say, I don't want this anymore. So you can go back to the filter and remove it. And again, we'll have all our options here. We can sort, for example, if I want the pickup dates to be the earliest first, of course, we just mark that there and we can have it here. So this is really a quick way of managing the results that we get right from the screen where we see the results for the forwarding order. So we can drag and drop, we can filter, we can sort, but anything we do here will not stay in the system unless we save the changes that we're making. Okay, so to do that, we would go to the icon here where it says Open Settings Dialog. And once we click on this, what we'll have here is a window that loads and allows you to do various things. Probably one of the best options is this first tab here, column selection, where we have our displayed columns that are already there. This means that the ones I'm seeing here to the right are the ones that are displayed in my search result, while the ones that are hidden are not. Okay, so that's quite simple. We can play around with the order here as well. I can select one document and move it to the bottom here. So now it's underneath ordering party, or I can just click on the double arrows and send it all the way to the bottom. Okay, if I clicked on OK now, my document number, instead of being here where it is now in the search result, it would show up all the way at the end. So you can always play around with this here, make all the changes you want. For example, you're not interested in seeing the type of forwarding order, you can always remove that displayed column. Maybe you want to have the pickup date, fine, but you want to have it a first. So instead you want to have it next to your document for the pickup date. The delivery date, you want to do the same thing and you want to have it here. So again, we were doing that before, just dragging and dropping, but now we're doing this from the Open Settings dialog. For right now, I have my document, pickup date from, delivery date to, ordering party, consignee. Maybe I don't want the ordering party there. I can take that out as well. So this is up to you, basically. You can manage this however you want. Keep the locations however you want them. You can also go to the hidden columns here. And if you click on the header, you'll see now that you can see all the options here, and probably easier to see if you scroll down than it is from scrolling from the other option here on the side. So I can scroll down and say, you know what, I want to see my buyer's reference number, right? That's always very important because this is the equivalent to the MOU. So this is what you want, and you want to add it. But instead of adding it right here or anywhere, you can always tell it exactly where you want it. So let's say I want to go to the top and I want it before my document. You just select the line, click on add, and now the buyer's reference number is going to show first, then your forwarding order, then the pickup date and delivery date, and so on. Something else that is very interesting too would be the Incoterm. That's something I like to have first as well to see what I am planning transportation for. So let's say I want to look for the Incoterm field. I can simply scroll down. Now we could go one field at a time, but that would take up the entire time of the training. So I'm going to show you just basically how to set up 2 or 3 fields. So the Incoterm field here, I'm going to select it, click on it, make sure that it's selected and in blue. And I want this to go before my document. So it's fine the way I have it set. Click on add. And there you go. Now I have my MOU, Incoterm, and document. If I clicked on OK now, that would change my display, definitely, but it wouldn't save the changes I made. If you want to do this only once instead of every time you go into TM, make sure you set up, the first time that you set up, you take some time, you set it up the way you want it. It's not like you can't go back and change it. You can. Okay, so let's say I want these 3 columns here and I want it displayed in this order, and I'm going to keep this here. I can also sort if I want to, but I think sorting is probably easier from the results page. Nonetheless, you can always select an unsorted column from here, move it over, and then tell it in this section if you want it sorted in ascending or descending. Okay, one of the columns that is very useful for me is the created on. So I could basically look for the column for created on, and I know that everything I'm going to be seeing first, if I want to sort it in ascending order, is what I created either 3 weeks ago or what I created today first. So we could always just look for the created on column. We can do it from here or we can do it from the results. So we have change by, change date, consignee, description. Here you go, created on, date and time. Maybe I just want the created on date. I want to move this over. I don't need the pickup date here, so I can remove this. And now I'm going to keep the created on in ascending, or maybe I'll just do descending so I can see the ones that I created last first. You also have options for calculations. You also have options to filter right from this window, and even the way that the results are displayed, right? Change the amount of rows that are displayed. The table design, you can change it to standard, transparent, alternating. I mean, you can play around with this. The grid lines horizontally, vertically, and so on. Let's click on the column selection. And now let's say I want to save this. I want to keep this set up because it's the one I like. What you would have to do, instead of clicking on OK, you would go to Save As. Okay, when you go to Save As, you'll tell the system that this description, for example, is, I'm going to write here, TM Training Day 2. And to keep it as my default view, I'm going to select this box here, Initial View. If I don't select it, it will not be my initial view, so I'll have to search for it, which is not a big deal. You can do that as well. So we click on Initial View, we click on OK. And now we already created a view, which is TM Training Day 2 with all the setup that I have. Once I click on OK, we'll see that the results now are going to be set up differently. See, now I have my MOU reference, my Incoterm, my forwarding order, my pickup, delivery, and so on, just the way I changed it. And you see your view now here, your default view is TM Training Day 2. That doesn't mean I cannot change. If I have several views, you can always click on the drop down and say, let me go to the one I set up a week ago, which is Training Setup. Click on that one, and the view will change to that training setup. Okay, so that's up to you. In this training setup that I set up a month ago or so, I put the Incoterm first, MOU second, and the created on third, and you see it's sorted already. If you change your mind and say, I want to sort this now in ascending order instead of descending, you can do that here too. You say, you know what, I want my document earlier. You can move it from here. But remember, all the changes you do now are not saved unless you go back to the Open Settings dialog with the movements that you just did now. Click on it. And when the window opens, you go to Save, and you make sure you save those changes you just made. Okay, now that's saved. You click on OK. And this is going to be your display now. So if we pay attention, we have Incoterm, MOU, forwarding order created on. I'm going to switch to a different view, Training Day 2. The results are going to change again. That's fine. And to prove that what I did before has saved, I can just go right back now and say Training Setup. Click on that. And now I should have again column, Incoterm, MOU, forwarding order, and the created on. Okay, so these changes remain. You always have to make sure you save the changes that you make. All right, so I think this is very basic in terms of what you can do with the setup. I recommend you do this the first time you log into TM. You start managing. I'm sure you guys have your preferred way of how you want to see the results and display the results. So make sure that the first time you open the settings dialog and you make changes, you spend some time reorganizing, and then you save your view, right? And you save it here. Should I repeat what I did, or maybe one of the things that I moved around, how to save? Was that clear? All right, perfect. So right now, the way I have it set up is created on, I believe it's, I'm not sure if it's descending or ascending. So here, descending now, I just changed, and I see that the ones I created last will be first here. So that's quite, I can scroll up. I still have a little more room to the top. So here you go. And this is the one I created. Today is the 10th of March. So I created one today. That's right here. The one I created yesterday, right below. All right, right there. So we can work on this. So now that we've reviewed this portion, what we want to do, and this is something that you guys, I'll also send you a scenario so you can practice this yourself and create your own personalization views. Let's go back to our PowerPoint really quick, just so that we can follow what it is that we're doing here. And hold on. Here we go. Okay, so just quickly to go over what I want to cover today. So we're going to be looking at the upload file process, which I know we did yesterday, so we probably don't have to go through that too much. Generating the forwarding order, we did that yesterday as well. So we went quite fast yesterday, basically. And then the planning profile, the setup of the planning profile for COE and troops. This is quite important, and this is probably the next step that we'll do right now and we'll set up. But before I do that, let me go back to my system here. So right now, and based on what we did yesterday, we uploaded a load file. We now have forwarding orders. And remember, these forwarding orders, usually starting with 21, are automatically generated the minute we upload a file together with a freight unit. Now the freight unit doesn't show here. We can't see that number here. We can click on the forwarding order. Basically TM loads a new screen, and that's something that you have to keep into consideration. Every time you click on a hyperlink, you're going to have a new window. See, the window generates, but in another screen, and here's the window for the forwarding order. So now we have our forwarding order document here for COE, and that's the number. I just clicked on the hyperlink, and this is the display I get. All right, so we have several tabs, as you can see: general data, business partner, location, date and times, route, ordered route, document flow, charges, notes, and so on. We also have a folder here to the right, and if I click on it, what we're going to see is all those tabs that are not displayed at once in the screen. So some of them don't fit in the display at once. We have up to notes, but beyond that, we have attachments, internal charges, and so on, statuses, and any other document that you want to see. You can just simply click on it. For example, if I want to see document references, and now I'm going to go to the tab for document references. See, and we have it here displayed. You can also limit the amount of tabs that you want to see. So I think that should probably be our next step, right? To show you that the personalization options don't only limit themselves to the search result page in the forwarding orders that we were seeing before, but they're available all over in TM. If you guys take a look here at the top, we also have that icon again, personalized icon, which we can click on, and that will change the display of the entire page. But we also have that icon for each and every section. You see the icon here, and we see the icon at the bottom. The way I have it displayed now is I have my initial tabs at the top, so document reference here, and the bottom section is divided into two: items and map. Okay, this is something you can display in whichever way you want, and I'll show you that in a minute. So right now I can see my document references, so that would mean anything linked, any type of document linked to this forwarding order will be displayed here. Right now there's nothing because I haven't even planned transportation, so I have nothing there. I do have the items that are being transported. If I scroll down, I don't know if it seems like it's crashing a bit. Hopefully it doesn't close the screen, and here you go. Okay, so let me scroll down a bit, and we see the items that are being transported are all here, and these are the items that were in our Excel that we uploaded, right? All the details are here as well. You can even select a line, and we can scroll down even further, and you'll have the details of that line below. So every time I select a new line from the items, the details will change, okay, related to that specific line. We can see details, quantities, any notes for that specific line will be there as well. Document references and the customs tab. Okay, so that is linked to the items section here. And as you can see, the map here is displaying basically the transportation proposal that hasn't been generated yet, but the system is already telling you that based on the source location and destination location that I added to the Excel, we already have our proposal here, right? Basically, we're telling it that we're going to transport the contingency on the equipment from Addis Ababa to Mogadishu. So that's going to be our transportation here. But we haven't done anything yet. Nothing has been generated in the system, but it's already displaying this. So let's change the setup of this. Let's go back, show you the tabs a bit here. Let's go back to our general data tab. If you guys are very familiar with this and you want me to go through this faster, I can. But if not, I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on the tabs and knowing what they each display. So we have our general data tab, which shows you basically that the details and the info that we had in the Excel sheets. So we have the type of document, which is the forwarding order. We also have the order date that was also in our Excel, the MOU reference, the sales organization, which is always going to be the United Nations, and then very importantly, the sales group belonging to whoever's going to be planning. Yes, Nicole? Okay.
Yes, Brian.
Okay. Yes, Daniel.
Brian, you hear
Okay,
me?
thank you,
Yes.
Nicole. Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, for bringing this up. Yes, some of the students cannot hear Nicole because she's talking over the BC system, and we can barely hear her. So if you can repeat her questions, or it would be better if she can use Teams so everyone can hear to the question from her and the rest of the colleagues in the room. Over to you.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I'm basically repeating what Nicole says. Just what she mentioned when I said, if you guys are familiar with this, can I move forward? She was just telling me that it seems like you're quite familiar already with some of the content on the tabs and some of the things I'm explaining. So I'm just going to keep moving forward and not spending much time on any of this. But nonetheless, Daniel, if there are anything that some of the students on the other side want me to go over, let me know and we'll stop. Okay, but I'll rephrase Nicole's questions for now because it seems she can't connect to Teams or her audio is not working, right? Is that it, Nicole? Okay, she's going to try to speak through Yuri's microphone, okay,
I can
for the next.
Yuri's.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
much
that's
better.
perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
All right,
All right, so thank you guys.
All right.
All right, so we will, and I think we can just mute Yuri there. Daniel, I don't know if you're going to mute him or I mute him myself.
Yes, if you can
Okay.
just put me as an organizer, I can do it myself. But currently, I'm as an attendee, so I cannot do that.
Seconds. All right, so let me just get you there, and I'll make you. Let's see. I have the option to make you a presenter. I'm just afraid that I'm
Presenter.
gonna.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Presenter. Yes.
Let's see.
So I can monitor the audio from the other end. Thank
All
you.
right, so you're
And
there now. Okay, perfect.
thanks, Brian.
Okay, and let's go back to the display where we were. All right, so basically the business partner tab is going to display the information related to shipper and consignee, locations, dates, and times. I recommend you always spend some time on this to see the info that we have here. This basically speaks for itself. The source location, destination location. The actual route is there as well, displayed in the tab, which is going to show us basically the stages, right, that are there. And the document flow, which is one of the tabs that I want to spend a little more time on. This document flow tab will show you, okay, the forwarding order and also the freight unit that were generated automatically. Okay, so in this case, I have already planned the transportation and we see that we have a freight order generated here. This tab is very important to understand not only the documents that were already automatically generated, which are always going to be the forwarding order and the freight unit, but if there have also been any freight orders generated from previous planning, right? So we have our freight order here too. Okay, this one has already been planned in this case. All right, so this is a very important tab to pay attention to. We have all our documents and we can access any of these documents just by clicking on them. And this will load a new screen in TM, just like the one that was loaded before. And let me bring this over. And you see now I'm looking at the freight unit document. Okay, so this works for any of the documents that are here. All these are hyperlinks. Every time you click on them, you'll go to that document. All right, again, just going back to the personalization. If you guys click on the personalization icon at the top section, and well, let's do that one first, you can see we have three options. The one I want you to use is open personalization dialog box. And when you have that display open, you'll see that it shows you first your column display. So column one will always reflect the top section, what we see here. The ones below for layout of section 2, you have column 1 and column 2. This is the layout that I generated. I said that I wanted in column 1 the items and in column 2 the map. And that's the display I have below. I can get rid of all this and reorganize this in any way I want. So I could definitely select any of these tabs. As you see, the general data tab, document flow, charges, notes, attachments, any of these. For example, I'll take the attachments because it's not interesting for me right now in the forwarding order. I can even select the notes as well, and just click on the bin and get rid of those. Okay, they don't disappear. You can always get back to them and bring them back. Okay, we can get rid of any of these that we're not interested in having, like probability, for example, or internal charges, and say, you know what, I don't want these displayed. And now all we have is status, output management. I don't want the other one either, so you guys can get rid of these. You see now the tabs are much less than I had it before. If I want to add a tab that is not here, present right now in the stack number 1. So what this stack means is that every number of the stack will represent a section. So if I have stack 1, everything under stack 1 will show up on the top section. Stack 2 will generate another section here at the bottom. All right, so what I can do now here is let me get rid of this layout, and I'm going to say I don't want any of these layouts here. I'm just going to want one column for standard layout. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these items. I'm going to get rid of the map as well. I'm going to save this. And now I only have the one section at the top. Okay, let's start from here. Right now we have the general data, and if we click on the folder, we have only these tabs available for us. So let's make some changes. Let's click on the open personalization, click on this section, and say that we want to change our layout. Okay, let's add some tabs that are not here first on the first section. To do that, you click on add, and you'll have a new window that tells you, well, now you have all these tabs that you can select from and add to your layout. So you see the items is still there, the map is still there, and any other tabs you may be interested in having. Okay, let's say I want to add the map back. You just select it here, you click on OK, and let's see what happens. It doesn't seem to show immediately, but if you scroll down, you'll have the map in stack 2. So what does that mean? Let's save and let's see what that means. See, stack 1, top section, stack 2, bottom section. And now we have the map layout displayed here. Let's go back here and let's make some changes. Let's say that I want to have my map in stack 2, like I have here, but I also want my items, just like I had it before. So I'm going to go back, click on add. I'm going to look for my items tab, which should be around here. Items right here. I'm going to select it, click on OK. And here you go. Now I have map and items. Let's see what that looks like. I click on save, and I'm going to have now stack 1, stack 2, and stack 3. So you're going to basically have to scroll down if the map is displayed here to the bottom section. Okay, that's probably not the best view to have. So let's change that view too, and let's bring it back to what we had before. So I'm going to click on this again and make some changes and say, all right. Once that screen loads, what I want is that the other stack, so the layout of section 2, I want it to be different. Now I want it to be 2 columns, maybe. I want to have 2 columns there instead. So now this is what I have, okay? And I want to add maybe the items there instead of having it in the stack at the top. Okay, so you won't have the option here now because you have it in the one previously added. So what do we do here? If you want to have it the same way, let's go back down. You can remove both of these. Click on the bin. The map and items are gone. And now I'm going to add them to the stack below. I'm going to add the column here, and I'm going to look for the items. Once again, I'm going to select them, but now I'm adding the items to my stack below that's going to be split screen like I had it before, right? And I'm going to add in my second column the map. All right, we have the map here too, and now we're back to having it the same way we had it initially. You can also change the way this is displayed. If you don't want 2 columns, you want 2 columns 50-50, we can do that as well. What that's going to do is display both columns at the bottom in the same, let's say, density. We'll see what that looks like in a bit. So now that I've made this choice and I've selected the 2 columns, I have my stacks here at the top. I can just click on save, and now we'll see that the display is just like I had before. I have my top section and I have my bottom section here as well for items and map. I don't know, that's something that works for me. I don't know how it works for you, but you can always play around with this. If you want to make changes in how the display of each section is done, you can click on that too, just by clicking on the icon for each section And you do exactly the same here as we did for the search result page. You can show some columns that are not displayed right here by selecting them and moving them over. You can get rid of some of the ones that are displayed here already. So what this is basically going to do is change the layout of a specific section. Okay, and you can also save that layout here, just like we did before for the forwarding orders. Okay, you can even add a standard view and save it. Okay, I'm going to save this section. And basically what you're going to do is remove the columns that are displayed here. To do that, remember, click on this icon here. So I think for personalization, you guys get the idea and how you can manage every screen. This is personalizing a specific document, and that's only for the forwarding order. You want to make changes to your freight unit, you click on the freight unit document. Let me bring this one over, and you perform exactly the same exercise we did for the freight unit document. Okay, you click on the personalization icon and so on, and we repeat the same process. For each and every document, you can do the same thing. If you want to change the forwarding order, you can do that too. Click on it and do the same thing. Okay, so you guys get the idea. If there's something you want me to repeat, I'll do it. If not, I think it's clear. Okay, remember, top section, open personalization, changes the whole display, and then the others just change the display of specific sections. Yes, Nicole.
Yeah, sorry, just one question came up here. If we have to do this only once, so because for the when we were searching in the forwarding order documents, we had to save a new search, right? But here for the personalization, if you do it once, then this is how it's going to be looking the next time.
Okay, yes, Nicole.
Yeah. To make clear.
So exactly. Hold on. If let's just mute Yuri's mic. There you go. Thanks, Daniel. So exactly, we can save the display when we were looking at the search results for forwarding orders. Now, every change you make here, since this is your login, right? You've logged into TM with your user. Every change you make here, you just have to perform once and it'll be saved. You see, if I open the dialog box here, okay, we have the layout. Make sure, of course, once you've made the changes here, you save it. And that's it. But what you don't do, like what we did for the forwarding orders, is create a specific layout and set it at a default. Once you've made that change, once you've played around with any of these displays, you just make sure that, of course, you don't just click on OK, right? But actually, you don't even have an OK button. The only button you have is the Save button. That's why any change you make here will always remain. You make any changes, you want it like this, you click on Save, and that's it. But for the other section, for the subsections, if I click on the personalization here, any change I make here, that will have to be saved like we did before. You see now we have a current view. So if I want to make any change here, I want the business document, for example, to show before my master column. Now I'm going to make a mess here. If I do that, I don't think I can. But here, for example, I want the business document to go in my third row, and I want to save this. I have to save it as, give it a view name, for example, test, save that, and now I'll have the current view for test. You can display this view on open. You click on this checkbox and we save this option. And now every time you open a document with your user, when you log into TM, this is the display you're going to see for the specific section. So you see the change that I made now should change the order. See, I have the business document now after my documents here. That's the change that I made. If you want to change that again, you can click on that. But again, remember, you can save this display and you'll have to save this display. If not, you'll have to reset it every time. So for specific sections, you have to save the layout. For the main section, you only have a save option. So once you click on save, that's going to remain like that. Let's say that we want to bring this back to where it was before, and I'll do that. Bring this to the bottom and save this under my test view. And here we go. We're back to normal. All right, so I can close this. I can click on the forwarding order again, and once this document displays, the layout that I set up should be exactly the same as I just did, right? So I'm going to maximize the screen, and there you go. We have our top section, 2 subsections, and the layout that we have here. See, even the view is still the test view. I can select the standard view if I want to as well, or just the test view. Is that enough for you guys? I don't know if I'm just repeating too much on this case, but I know this is very useful, especially because you're better off doing this once than every time you go into the TM system. You set up every display, everything you want to see. Remember, whatever you do and whatever you save is not written in stone. You can always change your mind tomorrow and say, you know what, I don't like this here. Let me change it again. You can do that. But make sure that whatever changes you make, if it's for a subsection, you save it under your view. You select the view that you want, and then when you make any changes, you save it here. Okay, that's, I think, quite simple. You can make the changes to even the items view. You can make changes. See, the map option doesn't give me an option to change how the map is displayed. It's just one default setting. Okay, so remember the items, you can do that too. Make the changes here and say you want one thing before another. The only thing you can't change here is the master column. All right, remember you save as, you create your own view. You save that, or in this case, I'm going to cancel, and make sure you set it as your display on open. All right, so that is enough for, I think, the search result page and for the document personalization. All right, anything else you would like me before I move on to show you here, before we move on to the planning profile, for example? We're still on the documents. We can spend a little more time on that. Maybe another 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you guys want me to do something, a specific request.
Brian, in the chat, we don't have any questions, so over to you.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
But he went through those.
Okay.
You went through the main tabs, right, Brian? The general data and location, we checked those.
I think we move on with the process.
I did at the beginning. I went through the tabs. Yes, I can do it again if you want.
No, it's okay. We can go on with the process. Ashley is keen to upload data.
Okay. So you said Ashley is keen to upload data. So should I go through the upload data process again?
No, whatever is next. It's
okay. Okay. All right, very good. So whatever is next is the planning profile. Okay, the first thing would be, now that we have our forwarding order generated, and now again, I clicked on the, you know what, let me do this really quick just to get rid of the planning that I have here. I'm going to, since I had planned this one earlier, I didn't remember that I had planned it earlier. I'm going to get rid of my freight order document, and I'll show you guys how to do that as well. And I'm going to just replan that one. Okay, so, and next thing, I'm just going to delete that forwarding order document and we'll set up the planning profile. So since we already have our documents, forwarding order and freight unit, the next step would be now to go to the transportation cockpit, right? What we want to do now is plan transportation for that, for those specific documents. So let's do that. Okay, so I quickly deleted the documents that were generated. I'm going to click on the same forwarding order again, so you guys can see that. I'm going to display this here. And now you see, before we had a forwarding order, a freight unit, and a freight order. I just got rid of that freight order, and now we're going to replan, okay, from scratch. So what's the process to do this? There's several ways. And one of the ways that I'll show you first is the way we would go by if we are uploading load lists with dates in the past, right? Since you can't really add dates in the past in the load list, you would have to add them in the future. You would have to go through the process of uploading normally with the dates in the future. And then basically when you have your forwarding orders here, you can access the cockpit in two ways. Directly from the search page, so I can select the forwarding order as I did here, and I can go directly to this button here called follow up. And when I click on it, I have the option to start transportation cockpit. So I can go to the cockpit directly from here. All right, this is basically, I would just click on this and this will navigate directly, and you'll see the window is loading now. to the planning profile. All right, and we're going to get into this in a second. You always have to first set up your planning profile, which is something you only do once, but you have to set it up, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. And then select one of the planning profiles, depending on if we're talking about a COE air transportation for LOA or non-LOA, or if we're talking about a COE sea means of transportation for LOA and non-LOA. In this case, they're all set up because I have already done that before, but I'm going to delete these and do them again for you guys to see how that's set up. Okay, so before we do this, I'm going to close. So I showed you how you can access the cockpit directly from here. Remember, we select the line, click on follow-up, start transportation cockpit, or you can go to the planning tab, which is available here. And from this planning tab, go to the transportation cockpit hyperlink. If we do that this way, we're basically going to end up in the same page. Okay, we're back in the planning profile. So we end up in the same place. It's just a different way to get there. Now, the first way I showed you how to get here will become important when we are planning for transportation that occurred in the past. Right now, we're going to worry about just setting up the planning profiles. So you see that I have one set up for COE LOA, okay, which would be for sea transportation, one set up for non-LOA, this is still C, one set up for, sorry, this is C, the other two were air, sorry, and the two below here for C. So they're all set up and everything's looking great. So let me just get rid of this and maybe I can start from scratch to show you how to set up this planning profile. So I can get rid of any of these just by clicking on the bin. I can actually probably just select them all and get rid of these. So what does this mean? Now I have no planning profile set up. So let's start setting up this planning profile. Again, I'll repeat, you only have to do this once, but it's very important that you do it correctly. So let's set up one of the planning profiles. First thing, we click on New, right? That's going to highlight a line here. And I'm going to set up my description first. I'm going to say, okay, this planning profile is going to be for COE, in this case, air, LOA, okay, scenario. So I know exactly what I'm setting this up for. Let's move over to the right. And the first thing I want to do here is the transportation cockpit layout. I want to select the layout for the UN map layout. Okay, that's the one you should select by, let's say, standard. Why is that? We'll see that later. This UN map layout will allow us to see in the transportation cockpit the actual transportation proposal that we are planning to, let's say, save and generate. If we don't have this selected here, we can always select it later on. But once you set it up here, you don't have to select it later on. All right, so the first thing is select your UN map layout. Next thing is going to the planning profile column here, and you go to the matchbox. And what this is doing is you're going to select the planning profile that you're going to set up initially. You have three options. First one, and you see the description on the right, is for planning profile COE non-LOA. Okay, so based on my description, this should not be the one I select. Second one means member country delivered, and the description is there too. This is for COE LOA member country delivered. And then we have another option that says non-air. So based on these descriptions, the one I should select now is the second one, because what I'm planning to create is a planning profile for all COE air transportation LOA scenarios. I click on this option here, and that's my planning profile. It's set up here for this, but we're not done yet. We have our freight order selection profile and we have our freight unit selection profile. And that's also going to become important when we go to the cockpit. First thing I want to select is my freight unit selection profile. I click on the matchbox, and now we're going to have more options. The only ones I'm interested in selecting are the ones for the freight unit. If you see in the description, it says freight order, and then it says freight unit, freight unit. So I'm only looking at these two on the bottom. I'm not selecting the two top ones, because right now I'm creating or selecting the freight unit profile. And you have two options, one for non-LOA, and then you have one for LOA member country delivered. So that's the one I'm looking for here. I select that one, and we have this set up. We still have one more option, which is the freight order option. Let's select that, matchbox, and do the same. We're skipping the 2 freight orders. We go to the freight units, and we're selecting also the member country delivered LOA scenario. And there it is. Okay, so now we would be done. Let's say we have our description that's going to help us recognize what planning profile this is for, COE air LOA scenario. We have our freight unit profile set up, our freight order profile set up, our planning profile set up, and the layout set up. Once I have that, I can just click on save, and this one will remain. I can leave the screen. I can actually close this window. I can go back to the cockpit, and that should remain. All right, so now the planning profile will load again. Oh, now in this case, since I only have one planning profile set up, it just took me directly to that one. Okay, so let's go back. I can actually even go directly from here. So I'm going to go to the planning profile section. So don't worry about what just happened now. We're going to get to that in a second. Let's add new planning profiles first. I'm going to set up one now for COE air non-LOA. Okay, let's set up that one. I'm going to follow the same steps, but go a bit faster this time. Okay, so we have the layout. Again, remember, you select the UN map layout. We're going to select the planning profile now for non-LOA this time around. So we have the non-LOA is the top one right here, bottom LOA, and this is non-LOA, non-air. So we only have one option, which is this one. We're going to set up the freight unit. In this case, we're looking again at the 2 options we had, but instead of the member country delivered, we're looking at non-LOA. We select that, and we're doing the same thing for the freight order. Back again, and non-LOA. Oh, sorry. See, I made a mistake there, going too fast. What I'm looking for here is the freight order one. All right, you remember you have to select that one. And I'm just going to make sure that that's what I did for the one before as well. Make sure that I select the freight order option. Okay, so there you go, LOA, non-LOA, and I'll save. So now I have 2 planning profiles set up. So I'll have to select one of these depending on what I'm planning transportation for. But we still have 2 more to set up, which would be the ones for C. Okay, so again, you would just do the same process again and create this. Remember, you only have to do this once. C, LOA, and the process again. We select our UN map layout here. We select our planning profile, but this time we're selecting it for C. So the non-air option is the one that we have available. Remember, the 2 top ones are for air. The bottom one is non-air here. Okay, so we select it. We have our option here. We have our freight unit. And again, freight unit, and we're looking at LOA. So here we go. We select that one here. And freight unit, in this case, freight order. We keep only at the 2 top ones, and this is LOA scenario. Okay, I would be missing just one more. I would click, same thing, and this time I'm doing COE, C, and now it's non-LOA. Okay, and the same process. Okay, this would be the last planning profile that I'm setting up. So now it's C non-LOA, again, non-air. I'm selecting that one, and I do the same process again for the freight unit and the freight order. So freight unit here, we're doing non-LOA this time. And for freight order, we're doing the same thing. And we're selecting the top one here, non-LOA. Okay, so I think that if everything was performed correctly, this is your setup for the planning profile. You never have to set it up again. Okay, it's saved and these remain here. All you will have to do each time you access the cockpit is to select the correct profile before you go to the cockpit and plan transportation. Okay, so that's why this is important to have it set up. You can even set one of these as your default if you're only planning transportation.
Yeah. One question.
Yes.
We have here COE sea and COE air, but we also have sometimes COE by road. only, the road portion, the inland transportation. So in this case, we will pick the option C.
Non-air.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, the C.
Okay. Exactly. We would choose the one for C, but now, Nicole, since I know that not all options are available yet, at least not in the queue environment, there won't be a separate planning profile for, let's say, road, correct? We're going to have only the air option and the C option. So if you want to select a planning profile for road, you would select the C option. That's correct, right? I see you nodding over there. Okay. So there would only basically
Sorry,
we
I didn't
only
know we
have
are
the setup.
Sorry. Exactly. So the land routes would be under C. I think we called it in production actually non-air instead of C.
Okay, thank you. Nicole.
thank you.
No problem, Yuri. Anytime. Any questions you may have. This is a doesn't seem like much when I'm performing the actions now, but this is a very important step, right? If we don't set this up well the first time around, we may not see the freight units that we're trying to plan transportation for. So it's very important. The good thing is that if you made a mistake setting it up, you can always change it later on anyway. Okay, you can always go back to the planning profile, review what you set up. Like before, when I was doing it quickly, I realized that I had selected a freight unit selection profile under the freight order selection profile, and I changed it. Okay, so all these options that are here can still be changed, all right, and saved. Another thing that you guys may have realized or not is that you also have a personalization icon here. Okay? You can also personalize the layout of this. And if you see, my view is personalized. I have the standard view and the COE training profile view that I created for this training. If I go to the standard view, this is what you guys would have seen. Okay, you see you have more columns that I don't use when I'm setting up my planning profile. So why do I want to have them displayed? So what I did is I went here again and I did exactly what I've been showing you today, right? Hiding some columns, reorganizing some columns. I created my own display. And that's the one that I'm going by. And you see, that's why this is so useful. If I go to my display, the one that I selected, I only see the columns I'm interested in. See, freight unit, freight order, planning profile, layout. That's it. That's all I want to see. I don't need to see anything else. And there's less confusion as to what I need to set up. So that's why it's important to set up your profile well the first time. So let's click on save. We can either directly now navigate to one of these, or I can just close and do this again. Transportation cockpit. So if what I'm saying is true, if I go to the transportation cockpit, now that I have 4 planning profiles, the system should take me to the planning profile. And that's what it did. Okay, it takes me right back here because now it doesn't know which one do you want me to go to. You have to tell it. Show me everything for COE, non-LOA, air transportation. That's what I want to see. You select it. You click on continue, and that finally takes you to the cockpit. And now in the cockpit, you're going to be able to see all the freight units that are still pending to be planned, right? Transportation is still pending here. And they're all displayed here on the left. Okay. If you say, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't want to see the air transportation. I wanted to see the sea transportation. How do I go back? Do I have to close this window and go back? And is there a way to navigate? And this is what I did before that I told you don't pay attention yet. If you go to this section, change profile selection, if I click on it, you see you have all your profile options here. You can either just click on the C option, and that'll take you to the cockpit for C. See, now the layout has changed at the top. Or I can say, go back to my planning profile screen, and that'll take me back to my initial screen here. Okay, and you can navigate just like that. I want to see my C pending transportation. So I continue, and here I am. I made a mistake, or I want to navigate to something else. You can just do it directly from here. Okay, so that's a very good thing to know, because at the beginning, a lot of our students used to think that when you made a mistake, you would have to close, go back, go to the cockpit again, open a new window, select my profile, and so on. So you don't have to do that. Okay, so let's stick to the COE non-LOA for air, because that's the one that I generated. I'm going to click on continue. And now let's focus on the cockpit. Now I know that 1 hour has gone by. We can either take a 5-minute break or we can continue going. From what I see on the VC, you guys are paying attention. You're 100%. If you want to keep going, I go. 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Shall we go and get a coffee?
Okay.
At least you can use the
Perfect.
toilet.
So for all of you listening on Teams, we're going to take a 5-minute break. So we'll be back at, I guess your time would be 10:10 or 10:11, as it's 10:06 right now.
Yes, Brian. Tamara Petrovic is asking for a 5-minute break as well. So yeah.
Okay, no
Thanks,
problem.
Virgil. Okay.
Okay, everybody, so we're connected back to the VC and also Teams. I think everyone can hear me again. I didn't even stop the recording, so let's just continue. We have our transportation cockpit now. This is what it looks like. You may be familiar with it or not. I'm not sure if everyone's at the same level, but this cockpit is basically divided into 4 different sections, right? We have our section here, top left, for freight unit stages. And that's why it was important, if you remember in the planning profile, to set up your freight unit planning profile so that we see here all the freight units linked to COE, air, non-LOA. If we don't set that up properly, we have this screen maybe blank, this section. And then we wonder, oh, there's nothing for me to do. And it's because your planning profile wasn't set up properly. The same thing goes for the freight orders. This section here to the left, to the right at the top, will display all the freight orders once I generated a transportation proposal. If I don't set it up properly in the planning profile, we won't see the freight orders generated. And we'll see that in a bit once I start planning. If you scroll down, you'll see we have 2 more sections. Bottom left section, we're not using right about now, but the bottom right section is where the map layout comes in. Remember, we spent some time selecting the map layout. This is where it becomes important. This section here, bottom right, if we go to the folder option, you don't see the map tab here. But if you go to the folder, you see you have map display and map. I'm going to select the map tab, and you'll see now the display is going to change, and here's where we're going to be able to see we have the map of the world. Now, as soon as we start planning, or even when we select one of the freight units that we're going to plan for, we're going to see that the system draws a line between the source location and the destination location. If we don't have the map layout set up in the planning profile, we won't see this map layout here. Nonetheless, if you forgot to do that, there's always an option to do it here. We have 2 more arrows at the top here in the navigational menu that you can select. Click on the page layout and select the map layout from here. See, UN map layout. So you can always make the change here if you don't set it up in the planning profile. You know you have the map layout selected because at the top it's written out here, UN map layout. Okay, so that's just to explain the 4 different sections of the cockpit. Now, let's work on just one of the sections, this one here, the freight unit section. It looks quite tiny here, and if you want to, you could actually maximize the section here, and all you see is just that section. It's a lot better to work with. You have a bigger display of the details, but if you don't want it or you want to go back to your previous screen, you just minimize it again, and you're back to having your 4 sections. Okay, so there you go. Let's maximize this. Again, personalization. You can also play around with what's displayed here. You can click on one of the columns and sort and filter to select a specific MOU. And talking about COE and troops, searching by MOU may be very important for you, if not the most important thing, maybe more than looking for freight units, because you may not remember your freight unit, but you know the MOU that you have to plan transportation for. So it's important to understand that by clicking on any of the columns, you can perform either the sorting, the filtering, or just select one of the options right from here. You can also use the magnifying glass here to perform our particular search. So let's say that I want to look for a particular freight unit or MOU or forwarding order number. I can just add it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe 1941. And when you click on enter, the option that you've added to the magnifying glass will be highlighted in yellow. If you have many options, it's probably not the best to have to scroll down maybe to look for your highlighted freight unit. So you can do that differently. Let's say that I want to, I'm going to copy this here. I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to, yes, Yuri.
One question here. You mentioned about the MOU. I don't know if we use the same terminology and this for the same purpose, but for us, memorandum of understanding is it's a document which is between the member states and the United Nations. So we don't know exactly the MOU number, and MoveCon particularly is not dealing with that. It's another department. But maybe we should better focus on the mission or the TCC or troops, you know, the country. So that is something which I would like to clarify.
Very good. Thanks, Yuri. So we can definitely clarify that. So if using the reference number or the MOU number is not the best way, you can search for any other option. You can always look for your forwarding order, which is right here. You can add it to the magnifying glass and look for the forwarding order generated in TM, the freight unit, or like you said, you want to have the troops, the TCC or the mission, right? For example, you can also have that there. So you see all the options that are displayed here. These can also be changed. If we go again to the icon for personalization, you can set up what you want to have displayed here too. So if we want, let's say, our carrier or consignee, right? If you want the mission, you can always select this available column and add this one here, let's say. And now we can probably search by consignee. Okay, we're going to do that this time and see how that works. But if you, what's very important is if you don't have that option added to the displayed columns, even though there is a mission, let's say MONUSCO there that you're transporting goods to or contingency on the equipment to, it will not show unless you have the column there displayed. So it has to be displayed. Let's add the carrier as well. Let's add we have the consignee address. We have, see, tons of options here that maybe, okay, we don't have the option here, but let's see, we have, what else? Means of transport, delivery category, planning block, planning status.
I think
so the TCC in this case will be consignor.
Okay, so in this case, the consignee here should be the mission. Okay, especially because I believe the two scenarios that I generated are for deployment of contingency on the equipment. So the consignee is going to be the mission and the shipper would be the TCC. Okay, so very important, Yuri. Thanks for bringing that up. So we have our shipper here. I'm going to select this option and move it over as well. So now we have two more columns. I'm going to save it. And now let's see how our display changes, right? So in a sense, we have our shipper, which in this case only shows our number, which may not be very helpful for us, right? We may need more than that. The same thing as consignee. We also have only the definition of the mission itself here in ECC, right? If we add this to the plant, this is what we'll get, but we want more info, right? So let's go back here. And you know what? Instead of having consignee and shipper, I'm going to have consignee and shipper description. Okay, that's going to be more helpful for us. And here it is. I'm going to move this one over, consignee description, and I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to get rid of my consignee because that wasn't very useful for me. I saw that the carrier didn't display any info. I'm going to also get rid of the shipper, and I'm going to look for shipper description this time and see if that is any better. Okay, so let's see, shipper description right there. I'm going to move it over and put it next to my consignee description. And we'll save that. And now let's see if that's better. There you go. Okay, so now we have exactly what we're looking for, right? We have the description of where this is going to, the consignee, UN mission DR. So we have one going to Congo here. And others, for example, Port-au-Prince is there as well. Naquora, El Fasher, Kinshasa, so they're all here. You have to select the consignee description option. Okay, but you see how important it is to manage the personalization in TM, right? If you don't have these columns displayed, you would think that this information is not there. If you're planning on searching by a shipper and you add, for example, maybe here a Brazil, you may not have that option available. See, and now they're all highlighted. You can also say, you know what, I just want to see the ones from Brazil. So I click on the column, custom filter, or simply search for them. They're right here, right? In this case, I only have these. So I can say, okay, I only want to see Brazil. Click on that, and the rest disappear. And now I'm only working with those coming from Brazil in this case, right? If we're talking about the contingency-owned equipment. And they're going to these missions here. So I hope that's helpful. But you see, if I hadn't added these columns and I write Brazil in the magnifying glass, nothing shows up. It's like nothing is going there. So it's important to have those displayed. All right, very good. So that is definitely an option for you. See, I didn't set that up in my initial view, but that's important for you. So I would set that up if I were you in your view and save that display. So every time I come into the cockpit, that's what I want to see, because that's how I'm going to be doing business. Okay, very good. So now we have those options there. Now, in my particular case, if let's say we want to plan transportation for these forwarding orders, let me just see a little more info on this. I'm going to scroll to the right. I'm going to see that the earliest requested date is March 16th. So that's still in the future. That's fine. I can still manage this one. The latest requested date is the 17th of March. And that's the information that I'm interested in seeing, right? So I can plan transportation for the first ones here. Let me scroll over. And I know that my transportation for the first option here, so my forwarding order number ending in 12, going to Kinshasa, coming from the troops contributing country here, Brazil. I have my freight unit. I see that my MOU is going to be the same as the one below, okay, but that wasn't important for you. And again, we may see several MOUs that make no sense to you in terms of business. This is the training environment that was just adding tons of load lists, but let's learn how to plan, right? Let's see what the planning looks like. I'm only going to select one of the options. For COE and troops, we're not going to be playing around with much of the combining of goods being transported, because basically the reference MOU number will dictate what things we can combine or not, right? I can't combine the contingency on the equipment of Brazil maybe with the one from Peru or the troops, right? In these particular cases. So we're not going to be playing around a lot with that, but we can do it for one specific scenario, which is for the one for several locations. And we'll get to that one too when we have a little more time. If not today, tomorrow. Let's go with the basics first. We're selecting one freight unit, which is this one. Remember, all the goods that can be transported together for this particular scenario, which is the one we're looking at here. That is at the earliest requested date, March 16th. So this looks good for me. And I can move on with this. If you want, I can minimize the screen. You guys see that I'm still on the same screen I was before. I'm only selecting one of the options. And now what I do is I go to transportation proposals. I click here, and if everything's okay, the system will load for a little bit. And now what it's doing is it's gathering from the master data in TM all possible connections, right? From the source location and destination location that I added in the Excel that is also in TM, the system is now managing from the data it has all the possible transportation proposals it can load. And here you are. So we'll have a total of 20 transportation proposals displayed at once. And these are the ones we're looking at. Okay, I have also played around with this display. And I told TM that what I want to see first is the shortest distance first. That's why my first proposal is proposal 10, because it's the one that only has one stage, meaning that all I have is airport to airport. And that means source location, Rio to Goma. Only one flight, one leg, one freight order. If you look at the one right below, proposal number 1, okay, you see it's not in order. You have 2 stages. And why is that? Because TM is telling you, okay, we also have Rio to Kinshasa, Kinshasa to Goma. And why is the system showing me that? Well, maybe because it's a cheaper route. And maybe that's the one we want to go by. I told the system, I just want to see the shortest route first. If you keep scrolling down, you may have more than 2 stages. You may have 3. And let's see if that's actually one of the options. See, look at that.
Yes.
You
Yes.
just said I told the system. How did you told the system that you want to go a shorter road? You didn't show us how you.
It's just settings.
Is it settings you've done before?
Yeah, the proof.
Okay.
Okay, no, very good. I'll show you right now. Okay, that's all the displays that are showing now in this training are displays that I set up previous to the training so that they would show in a way that I wanted them to show, right? And so this has been set up before, but I'll show you right now how I did that. Very easy. So basically, if you scroll down here, let me move to the right, right? You see the screen moving over to the right here. And now let me scroll up. You see all the options you have. All I told the system is I went to the duration column. I clicked on this column and I said, sort this in ascending or descending. So if I do the ascending, I'm going to have the shortest distance first. If I switch that, I'm going to have the longest distance first. And now if I scroll back up here, my first proposal is not going to be, see, it's the one with 3 stages instead of the one with only 1. And that's how I told the system, right? That's what I want to see. And how you want this set up, if you want this always to be like that, you can do it by cost. See, you can do it by the freight order cost, the distance, or any other option you want. You can go column by column in selecting, or you can simply go here like we did for every other screen. We can personalize it, right? Just like we did before, and tell the system here. I see my current view is shortest trip. I even called it like that because that's what I wanted it to tell me, right? And I told it that I want the sorting to always be for the duration in ascending. And now every time I generate proposals, that's what I'm getting first. I'm getting the shortest every time.
Practical question from the previous shipment, which we have been doing now. Road shipment from Kigali to Juba, passing by Uganda directly. It's just 1,000 kilometers. When I went to that cockpit, there was no direct road. It was showing me only option to Mombasa, and then from Mombasa back to Juba. So you can imagine it's triangle then instead. So having situations like that, then we have to make the ticket to add something on how can we resolve adding the logical things.
Very good question. I can see Nicole nodding in the back there. Exactly, right? So remember the first day when we talked about the master data, right? The request for master data. This is something we're going to be constantly going back to, right? And this is one of those examples. If by any chance you generate a proposal and you don't have that route, right, that let's say you usually use, or the one that makes more sense, why would I go all the way to Australia if I'm going, you know, to 2 kilometers from my home? So that's when you're supposed to request. That's because the system itself in its master data may not have the proper lanes set up to connect the shortest distance, right? Or the best transportation route. And that's one of the ways you can know. When you generate proposals and you don't see something that seems obvious to you, it's probably because it's not there in TM in terms of master data. Where you're supposed to request is either a lane that can connect to different shipping locations, or maybe it's the actual shipping point or the location that is not even there in TM. So that's one of those points where you say, okay, now I have to go back and request this for the master data team. And this is how you would know. And Nicole, you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add something, but not to the master data, on the cost that we can see in the cockpit, because sometimes it's confusing. People think that's related to our estimated charges, but it's not. It's actually a lane cost that we use how to sort the proposals. So currently we use either $1 per kilometer or $999 per kilometer, and 999 means that's the not preferred route. So that's how we try to move it up.
We ignore it. It's just for.
Well, it should be the routes with the $1 per kilometer should be the preferred routes. Yes, that should be the preferred ones.
How did you solve the problem?
Okay, and We can't
We
hear you
realized
guys
to
anymore,
add
Nicole.
We have to ask, we have to request to add the road we prefer. But unfortunately, this is the issue because it will take time for them to set. And if we have to do this, we just pick anything, you know, and just for time being, maybe it's just like that.
As close as possible.
Yeah. Because it will take time them to add the new road. Of course, it's good to have it for the future, but if you have to do something urgently, just
Yeah, we're just talking still on the master data, so sometimes it should take only 2 days maximum. But if it's an urgent requirement, then yeah, you might have to pick an alternative route.
No problem.
plus, in addition to that, we have, for example, in UNMIS, internal flights which we are contracting for the mission. Let's say between Juba and Malakal, those destinations are not in the database. So when we have to also add that, so that this will be also calculated into our statistics and so on.
Exactly, absolutely. You would have to, the more of, I think the system already itself in production, right? We've already gathered the types of routes or the typical routes that the missions have used, right, to transport goods and so on. So we should have quite a vast database of locations, lanes, and data and so on. But of course, we may not have them all. So every time there is a new route or a new possible route, we'll have to request it to the master data team to add it. And that's just going to keep making the data grow in TM in the future. So that's definitely the way forward. And now, Nicole, just a quick one. The $1 to 1 kilometer option. I know that in the training environment, it's the way it works, but in production, it's going to remain like that as well, right? So people will always select the lesser amount because that will be the best option, but it's not realistic data.
No, it's just used to sort the proposals. So, and if it changes, so if, I don't know, the missions always have discharge port Mombasa or normally, so then Mombasa to the mission, that should be the route that has $1 per kilometer. So that's basically how we use it.
Okay, perfect.
Per cubic meter.
Just wanted to
confirm that. Okay, so let's see. So we have that set up. And again, you're looking at the data that we have here displayed, and Nicole has explained why we have these costs and these amounts, and also how easy it is to set up what you want to see first or second. The way I have it displayed is that I want to see the shortest. You can also filter. Again, you have an option here to filter your search too. And something that has happened a lot, usually during ramp up, right? It happened that people would tell me, why are the transportation proposals only showing me sea options when I want to transport by air, right? And a lot of the times it happened because the dates were very far in the future. So the system was providing you with the means of transportation sea. It could also be that maybe there are no lanes for air. So that's something you also have to look into, right? Some of the ways that we would tell some of our students to act on that is to either change the dates so that when you're planning in TM can provide you different means of transport according to the dates now that are shorter than instead of 2 months from now. But for the majority of the cases, we realized that there simply weren't any lanes in the master data in TM for airport to airport. That's why it was only providing the sea transportation option. So that is one thing that you'll have to look into when you're planning transportation. What's important here is not to simply go into the cockpit, select the first freight unit you have, click on proposal and select the first one that comes by, right? Because that defeats the purpose. We have to be smart about this and always select the best option. And like Yuri was saying, if we can't find the best option, if we know, because we worked on this for years, that there's a better route and it's not there, we should request this route because that's going to help us in the future to have better data in TM. Because what we're trying to capture here is not only the estimated cost, but also a reference between the estimated and the actual, right? So that down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, or so on, the UN system for TM becomes more intelligent, and us as, let's say, business owners become more intelligent and can manage this better in the future. So that's why this is important for us. We need to build the knowledge in the system. Anything we do, anything we add to this system is just making it smarter. and eventually will benefit us in the long run. Okay, I know we spend a lot of time with the personalization, but we need to also spend time with why we're using TM. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to select my first option right here, which is the shortest option, which is just airport to airport. And again, it's airport to airport because that's what I added in my Excel. If I would have added a source location, the contributing country, and the destination location, the actual mission, and not the airports, the system would have provided me with extra legs. It would have told me we need a leg first by road to the airport, then the airport, and then the last leg. Okay, the only reason I have the airport to airport is because that's what I added in the Excel. All right, I'm selecting this, and in this particular case, I'm clicking on Accept Planning. I'm selecting that, and the system now takes me back to the cockpit, and you see now that I have my option for my freight unit selected and my still not saved freight order. So I have a freight order here. The system is telling me this is what you told me you want. Okay, and I haven't saved it yet. That's why the document number shows $sign with a 10. That means nothing yet. You haven't saved it. You don't have a freight order. And here's where the map display makes sense. And let's see that for a quick second. If I scroll down to the map display and I select this map display. Oh, actually, I just maximized that. Let me minimize it. And let me select the map tab. We see nothing there yet. And this is why. Go back up. You have your freight unit selected, which is this one, the one that you're transporting for. And we click on Update Map. When I click on Update Map, I can simply say Clear Map and add selected entries. I'm selecting this one because if there's any other data previous to this one, we need to clear it out, and we want the system to keep this data in mind. When I do that and I select this option, let me scroll back down now to the map, and it should show me, there you go. See, now it's telling me, okay, this is what you're about to accept. If I click on the I here, it's going to zoom in. You're about to say yes to this transportation proposal from Rio to, I believe in this case was, I'm not sure what the final destination was, but this is telling you particularly what the transportation route is going to look like. In this particular case, if I select my freight order, I only have one lane, which is not going to make much of a difference. But so you understand this, if we had 3 stages, and we want to view the stages individually, you select these under the freight order, you go back down here, and now instead of the map, what you're looking at is the map display. The map display option is going to show you the individual or the particular legs. In this case, it hasn't changed much because both my freight unit and my freight order are the same. So it's showing me the same exact route. But if you wanted to see the truck route with the airplane route with the other truck route individually, that's what you would do. Select map display, go back up, select another option, and you would see how that changes the route. So if you're happy with this and you say, okay, this is what I want, this is what makes sense, this is the usual business we do, you can go simply and click on save. That's going to change this number to a freight order number. Before you save, if you want to say, no, I want to redo this again, simply undo, and the freight order will disappear. See, nothing happened. I can select this option again, go back to my transportation proposals, select my best option, and get another proposal. And now I want to show you the different legs. Let's say instead of selecting my first proposal, I'm going to select my second, the one that has 2 stages, or maybe the one that has 3 stages, because it's costing me nothing. It's going to take a month to get there, but it's costing me nothing. So let's see. The proposals are back. Now the setup is different. Now I have my proposals here. 3 stages. Let's go with this one. Let's go with the one that shows 3 stages. So you see what I was showing you before. And I'm going to accept planning here. This time we're going to have 3 stages. We have 2 truck routes and we have 1 airplane route. Okay, even the stages here on the freight unit have changed. Now you see my freight unit now shows 3 different forwarding orders that are exactly the same. So your freight units will split into the amount of stages you have on the freight orders. You have 3 here, you'll have 3 let's say duplications of the same freight unit. You have 4, you'd have 4. You have 6, 6, and so on. If you want to look at the map layout again, you can update this. And now when you scroll down and you select the map option, remember map for freight unit, map display for the other. So we click on the I, and it seems like we just have the 1 lane, but in a sense, if we scroll in and scroll in, you can do this. Let's move this over and we scroll in and we keep going and keep going. We realize that we have, see, a little lane here. We can keep going a little more. And we have 1 stage from this address to the other one before we take our main means of transportation, which is the airplane. Okay, so that's very useful for you too. Now, if you want to see the particular stages, remember, go up, you select the truck route, you go down again, and now what we're going to do is instead of the map layout, what we're going to do is select the map display. And here, I'm going to just maximize this, map display. And now we have only one of the stages that we're displaying. Okay, let me make this tinier so you see the difference. Now we have the map at the bottom. Let's go to the top and let's change that truck route to this one. And the map will change again to the new truck route, okay, which is that destination. If you only want to see the main leg, you click on the airplane. And now you see the main leg. Okay, so I think that's quite clear. That's why it's important to have the map display. You have an idea, a very specific idea of every stage of where the truck is coming from, where it's going, where it's departing from, if it's air transportation, if not, before you even accept the proposal. That's why it's important for you to just not go crazy clicking and accepting anything, but paying attention to what you're doing, making sure that you're selecting the best route or not. You can even now, instead of rejecting this option, if I save, and I'm going to save this one, we have now our 3 freight orders. See, now they changed into document numbers, and now we have our freight orders there generated. Okay, we can't undo, as you can see here, we can't go back. They're generated now. Does that mean that we're done and we're stuck with this? No. If let's say we realize that we made a mistake and we should have taken a different route, we can still manage this. We can delete each one of these freight orders and plan again. So it doesn't mean that just because I generated them, it's a done deal. We can get rid of them and do that again. And I can show you that right now. But before that, anything you want me to go over or clarify before I leave the cockpit?
Quick question. This we have on top the optimizer planning. Sometimes, personally, I was confused with it because transportation proposals, optimize planner. Can you please just give a few words about that, please? Thank you.
Yes, sure. So far, and Nicole, I'm not sure if this has changed lately, but so far we always click on the transportation proposals to generate the proposals and select the best one. I'm not even sure because we haven't trained on this in training yet if the optimizer planning is working yet. I don't know if it's working in production, but would this
we're not
be
using
working
this
later on?
No, we just do the transportation proposal. So I would also need to check what's the difference.
Okay, fine.
All right, thank you, Yuri. I would guess that maybe down the road, the optimizer planning option would give us the best options only. I'm not sure. I'm just talking here, but it's not available yet. Okay, what we would do is always select transportation proposals so far. Okay, I'm not sure there. I don't see anything in the chat either, Daniel. If there's anything, let me know. But hopefully it's clear. All we have done so far is we uploaded an Excel, a load file, right? We had a forwarding order. We selected that forwarding order. We created our planning profiles. We went to the cockpit. We generated proposals. And here are our proposals. We're making sure we're selecting the best ones. But let's say that I selected these and I realized these are not the best ones. So what do I do now? Am I stuck with these freight orders? No. You can actually access these freight orders directly from here. Sorry, guys. Just been talking quite a lot. Let me get some water. So we have our freight orders here, and we're going to have to delete them. How do we do this? Well, we're going to start from destination location first and go backwards. Okay. Sorry, I had to cough again. So let's get rid of this one first, this first freight order here. I'm going to click on it. And this again is displaying my freight order. Okay, let me move it over again. As you can see, the one I'm looking at is 193. I have my freight order here, and I want to delete it or cancel it. The freight order was generated. I can edit, click on the double arrows here, and say cancel document. Once I do that, it's going to tell me, are you sure? Yes. The document now is gone. I can click here, but it's still here. So why is the document still here? All we can do is just refresh and it should disappear. Okay. Maybe all three of them are going to disappear. Okay, so there you go. Just that one disappeared. So I can do that one by one. I can do it from here in the cockpit, or I can access the forwarding order document. See, even the forwarding order now has reduced to 2 instead of 3 that I had before. You can also do this by clicking on the forwarding order. If let's say you left the cockpit, you close the cockpit and say, oh, I forgot to delete it, no problem. If you know your forwarding order or you know how to search for it, remember, you go to the document, you go to your document flow tab, you see all the linked documents to it. This one, the freight unit, and the 2 freight orders. So now I can simply click on any of the freight orders from here, go to that document, and delete it as well. Okay, I want to make sure that this is the main stage. You could always make sure it's the main stage first, or simply you make sure you're on edit mode, of course. Click and cancel document. Okay, we get rid of that one too. Now that's 2 of them out of the way, and we can again refresh, and we should lose one of these. See, and so on. You just repeat the process till you get rid of the 3 freight orders. You can do this faster once you become familiar with it. Click on edit and get rid of the document itself. Okay, so here you go. We got rid of the documents. Let's go back to the cockpit and see what that looks like. I'm going to refresh. And there you go. Now we have no freight orders. And we only have, we see in this case, look at that. Our forwarding order still shows 3 here. And that happens. A lot of the times when we plan, the system automatically splits that freight order into the amount of stages that we generated the proposal for. If I selected these 3 and generated a proposal again, I would probably get the same exact options that I got before, because I'm already telling the system, these are the stages I want. I want at least 3 stages. So how do we get rid of that? How do we reset the freight unit and plan from scratch? The best option is to also cancel the freight unit document. Okay, so we can go back to our freight forwarding order here. Let's look at this. We have our freight unit here. Remember, forwarding order, freight unit. We select it. And we get rid of it too. We click on edit and we tell the system cancel document. We cancel the freight unit document 2, just so that when we plan transportation for that freight unit, it doesn't take the historical data that we have now from that last transportation proposal, right? We want to start fresh. You see the number even 1925 should change when I click on refresh. See, there you go, 2051. So now it's a brand new freight unit number. And if I go back to the cockpit and I refresh that as well, the 13 will disappear. There you go. And now we have our new number there too. Okay, we can even get out of this page and plan again. So I can search for that same, I don't know if I was deleting or not the same number. It's quite far from here, but the options that we have, 20, for some reason, I don't know why I didn't change it here. Let me just get out of the cockpit and go back in. Okay, any issues on the canceling of documents? All right, so you can plan, you can get the results, and you can still cancel them anyway and plan again. Okay, I'm selecting my planning profile as well, and I'm going back in.
Question, Brian?
Yes.
Yes, Brian. Tamara Petrovic is asking, so if you want to cancel the freight order, you have to cancel first the freight unit?
No, if you want to cancel the freight order, you cancel the freight orders first, and then you cancel the freight unit. And that's basically just so that when you plan again, you start from scratch. You're not telling the system a predetermined previous search. Always cancel the freight order because it's the last document you created, and then move backwards.
Exactly, but she
Exactly,
still she insists. Do you still have to cancel the freight unit at the end, right?
At the beginning, when we were first delivering the training here, we usually wouldn't tell the students to also cancel the freight unit, but we did realize during ramp up that when you didn't cancel the freight unit and you selected the stages, right, that it was split into in the cockpit and generated the proposal again, we realized that the system would always give you the same proposals over and over because that's what you're telling the system to go by, right? So we would cancel the freight unit and generate proposals again. Sorry, Nicole, I know you want to say something.
Yeah, first we did it also through merge stages on the freight unit, but sometimes we ran into error that freight unit we were not able to plan it again when it has been planned once. So since then, Umoja has implemented that we have to delete the freight unit if we want to replan. It's just cleaner. Sometimes there was data saved on the freight unit and we were not able to plan it all.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks, Nicole. And I think the key word there was cleaner, right? It's definitely, you will only have your one freight unit instead of having it split into different stages. Okay, so that's definitely the main thing there. So cancel the freight orders and then just cancel your freight unit. So thank you very much. Okay, so we are 5 minutes away from what's supposedly the end of the training. Nonetheless, we'll keep going. This is what I wanted to cover today, right? We did the personalization, we did the search of the forwarding order, we set up the planning profile, and we actually even generated a proposal. Okay, that's more than I wanted to do today already. Now, I don't know how much time you have after this session to actually practice a scenario yourself. Nonetheless, we're giving you the chance to do that. So maybe I can use these last 5 minutes to explain to you what I sent in the PowerPoint presentation, okay? And how that would work. So those of you who do want to do it or do have maybe some time to do it can. If I go back to my presentation here and I can actually see, you still have this presentation in your inboxes. It's also in the chat. Everything I've explained in terms of how to upload the Excels is here, screenshot by screenshot with the text details. It's all here. I'm just going through this quickly. We did this yesterday, but nonetheless, you have detail by detail. Everything is explained here. How the forwarding order documents are generated. We saw this yesterday. We saw this a bit today as well. How this matters for the destination, location, and source location. What the document looks like, the tabs that we saw, the configuration, everything is in this PowerPoint as well. Everything we just saw is there. Okay, the forwarding order documents, where to find them in the document flow, and so on. So we can go through this quickly unless you want me to stop. And I want to go to the screen where I have the usernames and passwords, so you guys become familiar with that. Okay, so let's skip through this. We already saw this in the system. And here you go. We saw the planning profiles. Now we only set up the planning profiles for COE. And if you see in the PowerPoint that I'm sharing with you here, the exact layout for each one of those profiles is defined here for COE as well as for troops. So all you have to do is look at this screenshot to understand how to set your profile for troops and COE. Right? This is the planning profile screenshot for both. And you also have the transportation cockpit personalization of the layout that I showed you as well. As Yuri was asking about adding the shipper description or the consignee description, this is how you would do it. It's explained here. And that takes us to the map functionality. I explained that as well, the last section. We saw that step by step. We played around with this. We saw which ones we have to select to see what. So we're familiar with this already. The freight orders and the different stages. Nothing new here. Every PowerPoint presentation I'm sending to you has also the links to the job aids that may help you with how to generate combined proposals, how to use the map analysis, how to perform packing if you need to, how to request TM master data, and even the electronic data interchange. Job aid is there too. Okay, even the ones for BI that we'll get to on the last day. But this is what I want to get to. In this scenario that I'm sharing with you guys, for you guys to practice, you have in the PowerPoint the usernames. Basically, there's only 5 you can use. So I'm recommending, if you guys want to, actually you have no other option, get it together in groups of 2 or 3. If you have the time to work on this together, you can use one username for COE, one username for troops. There's only 5 of them, okay? And I know you guys are more than 5. And you can use these to work on the scenario. So you have the usernames here. The password is Umoja123, quite easy with a capital U. You use this information to then log into Umoja. How do you do it? I shared the link with you here. All you have to do is click on this link, enter your EIDMS information, click on the SAP GUI icon, which is there. This will take you to our next screen. Even the options you have to select for the training environment, the training system, T5T, and where you are supposed to add the username and password to later on. If you want, I can actually run through this before we close the session, so it could be easier for you. And finally, I think this is our last screen here. The 2 clicks you have to perform to go to the NetWeaver business client, launch the NetWeaver business client, and finally get to the training environment for TM. Okay, so I can run through this if it's a good option. I see you guys in the room running back and forth. I don't know if you have to leave the room.
Yeah, we have to vacate, yes.
But that's fine. If you want to continue this, the other will be listening. On TM is not disconnecting. It's only VTC room we have to vacate.
Or this is a
All right, no problem. So
good start for tomorrow to show.
And we again
Unless
in the
if
same
there's a
room
homework
tomorrow?
for the scenario. Yeah.
When in
sorry, you guys are muted over there, Nicole. I'm not sure you were saying something.
Talking about tomorrow, so it's going to be the same time but different room probably, right? We'll have to find out.
Okay.
All right, very good. So I can show the those who stay in TM how to log into the training environment quickly, but nonetheless, I can go over it tomorrow, first thing at the beginning of the session, just in case people need to go back to their desks. Okay, thank you guys. All right, so for those of you who are still in Teams, now I know some of you have to leave, that's fine. It's just going to take me 5 minutes to show you how to log into the training environment for TM. So I'm going to just do that really quick if some of you want to practice today. So let me get out of this presentation and get out of the VC as well. Okay, so here we go. Let me share this screen and make sure you guys can still see it. So I'm getting out of the Q environment, which I was using so far, and I'm going to start this from scratch. Okay, so for those of you who are still around, I'm just going to run through this quickly, and it's going to be in the recording.
They are, Brian. So yeah.
They are still around. Okay, thanks, Daniel. So as it's explained in the PowerPoint, remember, first thing you do is click on that link and add your Unite ID. All right, and you would just add your Unite ID as if you were logging into production. But now instead of selecting the production icon, you go to the tab for all and click on the SAP GUI option here. This is what we use for pretty much all our trainings, right? All the students use the training environment to perform the exercises. So you'd click on this. This will prompt, depending on the browser you're using, below, up top, or just open it directly, will prompt an application that is going to now load, which is the one for Citrix. And here it is. This is what it would look like. So you would be on this screen. And as it's indicated in the PowerPoint, you select the training system. You select the T5T. So training system, T5T, double click. That will now take you to the user and password. And all you have to do is add the user that was in the PowerPoint. Okay, so if let's say I have the user here, let me just share this. So that screen that I was showing before, these users, these are the ones. You select one and add it to the environment here. The user, you just click on that and I can use this one right here, the first one, and add capital U, Moja 123. Once you're in this page, you click on Launch NWBC. That opens a new window. Again, this is just a training environment, so there's a lot of clicks. And when you click finally on the last link here, we're in TM. Okay, so basically you're back in TM and you can now click on the forwarding order, search for forwarding orders, or upload any of them. Okay, you have your Excel templates as well. You have at least 2 that you can start playing around with. I think it's 2 for inbound flights for non-LOA and LOA scenarios. So you can practice with those 2. Okay, and if you need more, I can always. Okay, so anything you guys would like me to go over before we close the session? You want me to show you the Excel? You want me to show you the mass upload process again? Are we okay with logging into the training environment?
Brian, so far we have no comments or questions over the chat, so over to you.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. I'll just let's just wait another 10 seconds if anybody wants to add anything. Okay, thanks, Brigitte, for the nice comment. Definitely take time to practice. I know we're starting with the basics, which is uploading the form, but you have to start somewhere, right? You have 2 Excel templates, play around with those. Yes, we'll go over this in tomorrow's session as well. Okay, I can actually even run through it quickly. Perform a mass upload of 2 Excel forms, create a planning profile, generate a proposal. We can do that tomorrow as well. Alrighty then, because I know the time it is, some of you have to get back to work, people are moving around, and like yesterday, the last minute portion of the session is lost. Nonetheless, I just wanted to go through it first. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us for today's session as well. Hope it's very helpful. And see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.